Kash Patel calls Karoline Leavitt stupid. Her comeback is legendary. That's a stupid question, Karoline. Try thinking before you speak next time. Kash Patel doesn't even look up from a microphone as he says it. His voice cuts through the panel room like a blade, sharp and smug. There's a beat of silence, the kind that makes everyone instinctively glance at each other, unsure if they just heard what they think they did. Karoline Leavitt does not blink. She tilts her head ever so slightly, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of her legal pad. Then she lifts her chin, smiles, calmly, pointedly, and replies with a voice steadier than the room deserves. I'd rather be called stupid for asking than be remembered for lying in silence. A few staffers shift in their seats. A whisper somewhere near the back. Oh, damn. The moderator tries to intervene, forcing a chuckle. Let's keep it civil. Folks, remember, we're here for national security, not. But Karoline leans in. Is that the standard now? She asks, voice cool. Mock the question when the answer is inconvenient. Kash shifts, leans into his own mic. It's inconvenient, he says, because it's nonsense. Karoline doesn't flinch. Then clarify it, publicly, because right now, the American people are watching a man avoid responsibility with a smirk. There's a shift on the panel. Senator Braswell glances down, refusing to meet eyes. A junior analyst 2 seats over starts jotting notes. Fast. Karoline's eyes stay locked on Patel. Are women supposed to stay quiet while men explain away broken odes? The tension coils tighter. Patel exhales through his nose, shaking his head like she's a child with crayons. You're out of your depth. Karoline replies, softer now. No, I'm just not afraid to ask how far yours goes. That line lands hard. A burst of camera flashes follows. Phones are already out. Across the room, a digital media intern mouths. She flipped it. The moderator clears her throat again. Let's, move forward with the... But no one's listening. The room has already changed. 10 minutes later, the panel ends. No one really remembers the closing statement. No one quotes Patel's closing remarks. But within an hour, a single clip dominates Twitter. Kash Patel calls Karoline Leavitt stupid. She obliterates him. A 28-second video, posted by a random viewer, hits 200,000 views by dinner time. Hashtag stupid question trends. Karoline's office doesn't respond. Not yet. Her team watches in silence as TikToks roll in. One woman, mid-50s, nurse from Ohio, posts a video. She kept her cool. That's what smart looks like, fellas. Cable networks replay the moment on loop. Fox News titles it Young Gun Fights Back. CNN labels it disrespect on display. MSNBC asks whether this moment signals a generational crack in conservative leadership. None of it touches Karoline directly, but she sits alone in her office that night, staring at her inbox. Subject lines. You okay? Legend. This moment. One from her mother. You did good, but I saw your hands. Don't let them shake too long. She types back. They stopped after the first word. A few buildings over. A group of Hill interns sit in a Georgetown bar. Phones held high, rewatching the clip for the 5th time. One leans back and says, she didn't just take the hit. She used it. Patel, meanwhile, is nowhere. No tweets. No rebuttals. Just a short quote past the Federalist. No comment on immature drama. But drama isn't the word people are using. Teachers replay the clip in high school civics classes. One caption reads, "This is why we ask," even when they laugh. And Karoline knows it deep in her stomach, that she just stepped through a door, one she didn't knock on, one they hoped she'd never find. In the mirror that night, brushing her hair back behind one ear, she says it out loud, just once. You try to bury me with one word. And she lets the silence answer. Comment your city if you've ever felt forgotten by powerful people. She's not even 30. A voice mutters behind a heavy curtain, low and bitter, and she thinks she can grill a counterintelligence officer? Another one snorts. What's next? A TikTok civics lesson? The sound of stage crews adjusting microphones echoes faintly through the backstage corridors of the Capitol Conference Wing. Lanyards swing. Coffee cups clink. No one says her name with respect. Just her. She'll be forgotten by next week, someone adds with a dismissive chuckle. One headline wonder. Karoline Leavitt hears none of it. She's already walking alone through a lower hallway, her heels clicking softly across polished marble. She isn't checking her phone, though it buzzes nonstop in her jacket pocket. She isn't reacting to the glances, either. The subtle head turns from aides pretending not to notice her as she passes. But in the elevator, the silence presses harder. An older woman in a maintenance uniform, gray streaks in her hair, holds the door open for her. As they ride together, the woman glances over and murmurs, "That's exactly why we don't run." Karoline doesn't reply. She just nods, eyes forward. When she steps off, she finally checks the screen. 2 dozen missed calls. Twitter still buzzing. Headlines multiplying. A group chat message from her press team lights up. Connor, comms DR. MSNBC saying you cross a line. Fox debating if you save the movement. Decide fast, damage control or declaration. She replies with 3 words. We don't apologize. Then she types again. We clarify. That night, she sits across from a Newsmax host under bright, sterile lights. No crowd, just camera crews, earpieces, and 2 coffee mugs that will never be touched. The host tries to ease in with pleasantries, but Karoline interrupts. Let's start with a clip. Play it. They roll it. Patel's voice is unmistakable. That's a stupid question, Karoline. Try thinking before you speak next time. Silence. Then her response. Calm. Cutting. The moment when everything changed. As the clip ends, Karoline folds her hands. If strength is measured by tone, she says steady, then truth must be silent. But I don't believe that's the world we want. The host leans forward. Do you think you were disrespected because you're young? Karoline blinks once, then answers. I think I was underestimated because I asked a question they didn't want to answer. Everything else is camouflage. The interview airs at 9 p.m. Eastern. By 10:12, the phone lines light up. She's what we've been waiting for. Reminds me of Reagan in '80. Calm, sharp, dangerous when underestimated. She didn't take the bait. She built a bridge with it. But something unexpected starts happening. Not from the usual conservative echo chambers. From older viewers, grandparents, retirees, veterans. A man from Missouri calls, and I've got granddaughters. And if a man ever said that to them in front of the whole country, well, they'd better answer the way she did. A woman from North Carolina writes in, I don't like her politics. But she didn't flinch. That's character. Her team starts tracking the sentiment. Karoline's support among 55-plus viewers spikes by 11% in 2 hours. She doesn't celebrate. She's in her office again, lights dimmed, staring at a printed article left on her desk by an intern. Leavitt oversteps or overcomes? The generational rift at the heart of conservative media. She circles one line in pen. Maybe this wasn't about security policy. Maybe it was about who gets to ask the hard questions. Connor knocks lightly, peeks in. You good? Karoline glances up. They're loud today. He nods. Always are after someone breaks formation. She sets the article down. What's the schedule for tomorrow? Radio in the morning. Then Heritage. Then OANN wants to sit down if you're willing to spar a bit. Karoline exhales, not out of exhaustion, but readiness. They'll keep talking over me, she says. So I'll keep asking until someone realizes the real silence isn't mine. At a local diner in Georgia, a former schoolteacher rewatches the panel moment with her husband. She turns to him and says, she didn't win because she shouted. She won because she didn't. On Twitter, someone posts, the GOP told her to wait her turn. She asked them who wrote the list. The next morning, Politico runs a column. Leavitt's rise or the party's reckoning? But Karoline's reply isn't in print. It's in a 3-word tweet posted at sunrise. Ask. Ask anyway. Can a whisper of truth survive when everyone around you is yelling? She speaks like my daughter used to, before Washington made her feel small. The words are scribbled in careful cursive, just above the signature. The envelope had arrived that morning without a sender listed. Postmarked from Nashua, New Hampshire. Karoline's chief of staff places on her desk, raising an eyebrow. Real letter. No social handle. No hashtags. Just pen and paper. Karoline lifts the envelope slowly, tearing the edge with her thumb. The letter inside is folded neatly, corners pressed flat. The handwriting is firm but aging, slightly slanted. The ink a deep blue. She reads silently. My name is Alice. I'm 71. I had a daughter once who wanted to be you. She interned on the Hill. She asked hard questions, too. Until the answers she got broke her spirit. She teaches 7th grade now. Says politics is just noise. But I watched you this week. You didn't yell. You didn't mock back. You stayed still. And I remember my daughter's voice before she gave up. Thank you for sounding like courage. Don't stop. Alice, Nashua. Karoline doesn't speak for a long time. Her fingertips rest on the letter like it might dissolve. Connor enters, tablet in hand. OANN is asking if you want to comment on Patel's silence. Still nothing from him. Karoline shakes her head slightly. I don't want to respond to him. He squints. Then what are we doing next? She taps the letter gently. We're going to read this. That evening, she appears on a small but steady program. Regional network, mostly ignored by the Beltway press. She sits across from the host, nodding politely through introductions. Midway through, she leans in and says, May I read something instead of answering a question? The host blinks. Of course. Karoline reaches into her folder and pulls out the letter. She reads it all, word for word. Her voice doesn't crack. It doesn't rise. It just carries. She teaches 7th grade now, says politics is just noise. The line lingers. When she finishes, she folds it carefully, looks directly into the camera. Thank you, Alice from Nashua, she says softly. Your words are more powerful than mine ever were. Silence follows. No applause. No dramatic cutaway. Just the soft hum of a camera lens holding still. That moment breaks the internet in half. Clips of the readings circulate, stitched with photos of young women at rallies. One caption reads, For every voice that was told to sit down. Cable hosts are confused. Some call it manipulative. One pundit scoffs. We're doing grandma letters now. Another laughs. What's next? Knitted confessions. But viewers aren't laughing. The clip is replayed at dinner tables, in break rooms, at quiet church groups. A comment under the viral post says, My daughter rewound that clip 4 times. She asked me why no one reads letters anymore. Others follow. She reminded me of why I voted the first time. It's not about right or left. It's about respect. At a community center in Virginia, a veterans group pauses their meeting to play the letter on a projector. One man, mid-60s, arms crossed, whispers, That ain't staged. That's a mom. Back in Karoline's office, her press inbox floods, not with interview requests, but more letters, handwritten, folded. Connor walks in holding a stack. We're going to need a system. Karoline looks up. For what? He shrugs. For the people who forgot how to use Twitter, but never forgot how to speak from the heart. She takes one of the letters, flips it open. A Bible verse is underlined. Be still and know that I am God. Later that night, a round table show debates whether Karoline has weaponized sentimentality. One guest calls her a Hallmark patriot. Karoline sees the clip. She doesn't respond. Instead, she writes a note to Alice. Simple. Just 2 lines. Your daughter never stopped speaking. I just heard her through you. She doesn't send it. Just folds it into the original letter and places both in a drawer. The next morning, a staffer enters with wide eyes. Ma'am, you need to see this. On a quiet stretch of C-SPAN call-in radio, a woman says gently, I'm Alice, from Nashua. I just wanted to say thank you back. Then she hangs up. No hashtags. No trending topics. Just a voice from the corner of the country that decided truth didn't need to shout. It only needed to be read. What happens when the only thing louder than a microphone is a pen? She found it. Someone mutters in the committee cloakroom. She actually found the memo. The whisper carries like static, soft but dangerous. Karoline's chief of staff doesn't speak. He just places a folder in front of her, thick, cream-colored, edges slightly worn. No label, just a paperclip holding a post-it, pulled from archive. It's real. Karoline scans the first page. Top line. Preliminary advisory. Containment over clarification. Inside, an internal exchange from a closed security subcommittee. It details an intentional choice, months ago, to suppress findings tied to a domestic breach of classified intel for fear of public disarray. The signature at the bottom is Patel's. She closes a folder gently. He told me the question was stupid. Her chief of staff answers quietly. Turns out it was dangerous instead. She doesn't storm out, doesn't call the press, doesn't tweet. She walks. Down the hall, past portraits of forgotten senators, through a quiet corridor where the fluorescent lights hum a little too loudly. A closed-door meeting is already in session, routine, dull, until she enters. Patel is seated 3 chairs in, speaking in low tones to a defense analyst. Karoline walks straight to the table. She doesn't ask to speak. She simply sets the folder down. The room stills. Patel raises an eyebrow. "What's this?" Karoline's voice is calm, controlled, cold. "You call my question stupid." She slides a folder toward him, but this document answers it. He flips it open. His expression doesn't change, but his hand tightens around the edge of the chair. She continues. "You weren't trying to avoid chaos. You were avoiding accountability." Patel glances up. "You shouldn't have this." "And yet," she replies, "I do." The room holds its breath. Someone coughs. A legal aid scribbles fast in a notepad. Patel exhales through his nose. This doesn't leave this room. Karoline leans in slightly. That depends on whether anyone else in this room remembers their oath. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't have to. Later, a leak appears online, an anonymized transcript labeled Closed Committee Exchange, Leavitt versus Patel. It reads less like dialogue and more like a courtroom deposition. At the bottom of the transcript, one final line catches a public eye. She said, "You buried the truth in a folder. I'm just the one who opened it." Is silence still powerful when the truth is in writing? Leavitt just got her mic cut. A junior reporter whispers, eyes wide as she steps away from the Capitol press risers. They're trying to shut her out. The words ripple through the hallway like a dropped match in dry grass. Karoline had been scheduled to appear on a major Sunday morning program, a key spot, nationally televised, tightly scripted. It disappears from the lineup without explanation. The network issues a vague press release citing formatting adjustments. But behind closed doors, producers tell her team the truth. Pressure from senior committee members, Patel's allies. They think she's gone rogue. One Booker admits off record, said she's making internal conflicts public. We're not touching that. Karoline receives a message while sitting alone in her office. The light from the window slices across her desk. Her phone buzzes. Another interview canceled. Another sponsor pulling distance. Connor stands by the door, arms crossed. "Want me to go nuclear?" She shakes her head. "They're not silencing me. They're amplifying me." He scoffs. That's a pretty speech for someone just got ghosted by every network on the Hill. Karoline leans back in her chair. "You know what I learned this week?" "What?" "That it only takes one honest sentence to terrify a whole institution." She doesn't say more. Doesn't need to. But the silence doesn't last long, because someone else speaks up. That night, a video appears on a quiet corner of the internet. A retired Army colonel, uniform still pressed, stands in front of an American flag in his garage. He doesn't yell. He just speaks plainly. "I've been called names, mocked, dismissed, but I watched Karoline Leavitt ask a hard question. Then I watched the establishment cut her mic, call her stupid again, and watch how many of us remember our daughters. The video gets 8,000 views the first night, 400,000 the next. Then the floodgates open. A nurse in Montana films a clip on her break room floor. I ask stupid questions for a living. It's how I save lives. Keep talking, Karoline. A firefighter in Tulsa. When the alarms go off, we don't ask who's loudest. We ask who's right. She was right. A Sunday school teacher in Georgia, holding up a note card with 3 words. We ask anyway. Within 48 hours, a hashtag emerges organically. Hashtag Ask Anyway. It trends nationally by the weekend, not from influencers, from people. Karoline sees the shift in real time. One notification after another. She doesn't post a video, doesn't release a press statement. She posts just one sentence. White background, black text. Courage isn't about volume. It's about what you say when they try to turn off your mic. The post hits 2.3 million impressions in 12 hours. In the Capitol lunchroom, aides scroll through their phones. One whispers to another, "She's not even trying, and she's winning." Inside a media control room, a producer sighs. She didn't burn the system. She let it choke itself. Meanwhile, Patel holds a brief conference. A reporter asks about the leaked folder. He deflects. This is all an orchestrated distraction. The clip garners half the engagement of Karoline's quote. Because now, her voice isn't just hers. It's multiplied, echoed. A high school civics teacher in Michigan changes the name of his Monday lesson when asking becomes dissent. A pastor in Alabama rewrites his sermon introduction. What happens when the temple turns off your mic? You preach louder in silence. Karoline doesn't smile. She doesn't gloat. She walks through the Capitol hallway the next day, head up, past faces that won't meet her eyes. Behind her, the echo grows. How do you silence a voice when the people start echoing it? My name is Amanda Klein, and 2 years ago, my brother was killed while following a memo like the one she found. Her voice is steady, not loud, not trembling, just deliberate, like every syllable has already been spoken 1,000 times in her head. The chamber stills. Reporters stop typing. Cameras adjust focus. Even the interns freeze in the gallery. Amanda steps up to the witness microphone at the Homeland Oversight hearing. She's not on the schedule, not in the talking points, but she's here, a Gold Star sister, and she's holding a copy of the memo Karoline brought to light. She lifts it slowly. The paper shakes just slightly in her hands. This document, she says, was echoed nearly word for word in a local security directive my brother received. He was part of a temporary domestic response team. No one trained them for what came next, but they were told to stand down, to stay quiet, for public calm. Amanda's eyes scan the room. They died calm, she adds. Quiet, just like you asked. In the third row, Karoline sits motionless, her hands folded, her gaze steady. Amanda continues, her voice low but cutting. No one listened, until she did. She turns her head toward Karoline, then looks back at the committee. Karoline Leavitt found the memo you all buried. She asked a question you called stupid, and now I'm standing here because my brother can't. A murmur ripples through the room. From the left side of the dais, Kash Patel shifts forward. His mic clicks on. With all due respect, this committee should be careful assigning blame. The chair raises his hand. Let her finish. The gavel never drops. It doesn't need to. Amanda doesn't blink. Don't you dare tell me what this committee should be careful about. You had that memo. You signed it. She looks back to Karoline again. And you, Congresswoman, thank you for not letting them bury him with their silence. Karoline doesn't speak. She places a hand gently over her chest. Just that. The cameras catch it. The press doesn't spin it. Because this isn't politics. It's reckoning. A staffer in the back quietly wipes a tear. One of the aides who laughed in the hallway 3 chapters ago, now staring at the table. Amanda folds the paper, slips it into her purse, and says just one more thing. Sometimes truth has a body count, and sometimes someone has to read the names out loud. She walks out. No applause, no flashbulbs, just a silence so dense it forces every chair to sit heavier. Outside the hearing room, someone posts a clip within seconds. The caption reads, "She wasn't on the list, but she changed everything." By nightfall, the moment is everywhere. News anchors don't cut the panel. They just replay Amanda's words. Podcasters interrupt their ads. Stop. Play this. Even opposition figures remain quiet, for once. A trending tag spikes. Hashtag let her finish. And beneath it, hashtag enough. Karoline logs off. She doesn't post. Because nothing she could write will be louder than the woman who finally said what the country had been feeling. A mother in rural Ohio comments under the clip, "We don't need louder politicians. We need braver questions." And a teenager in Nevada replies. She didn't flinch. Neither did Leavitt. In a dark office somewhere in D.C., Patel scrolls through the flood. He turns his phone face down. No rebuttal. No spin. Because when truth costs lives, even silence comes with receipt. If this made you emotional or angry, comment the word and up below. You got guts. My daughter saw that hearing. Said she wants to be you. The voice is soft, barely audible over the terminal's steady hum. Karoline looks up from her boarding pass. A man in a TSA uniform stands beside her, holding out her ID she didn't realize she dropped. He doesn't ask for a photo. He doesn't linger. He just smiles once, nods, and moves on. Karoline watches him walk back toward security, then exhales. It's early, quiet, the kind of morning where even the airport seems to whisper. No press, no entourage, just her, a rolling suitcase, and a half-drained thermos of bitter hotel coffee. She doesn't check her phone. The alerts have piled up again. Interview requests, op-ed pitches, emails with subject lines like next steps and crisis framing strategy. She lets them sit. She walks toward her gate. People glance. A few nudge each other. One woman lifts her phone, hesitates, then lowers again. Karoline nods at her. At a corner near the windows, a janitor pauses mid-mop. He leans on the handle and gestures toward her with his chin. You reminded me of someone. Karoline raises an eyebrow. Oh, teacher I once had, he says. Wouldn't shut up either. Didn't care if it made folks uncomfortable. She kept asking the hard stuff. She smiles genuinely. Did it get her anywhere? He shrugs. Yeah, got her fired. But now every kid she taught knows how to think. Karoline laughs under her breath. Sounds familiar. The man nods once and resumes mopping. At her gate, she waits alone. No staffer filling in schedule gaps. No consultant whispering strategy. Just the boarding calls and announcements echoing from two tinny speakers. As she boards a plane, the flight attendant pauses mid-greeting. Congresswoman Leavitt? Karoline nods gently. The woman leans in and whispers, My niece wrote a paper about you this week. Called you the only one asking grown-up questions. Karoline gives a small thank you. The attendant adds, I don't agree with you on much, but you made us all feel something again. Haven't seen that in a while. No seat upgrade. No first class. Karoline slides into a window seat near the back. The quiet hum of the cabin settles her more than any spin room ever could. She reaches into her bag, pulls out a small envelope. It had been handed to her by a congressional clerk with no return address. She hadn't opened it in the chaos of the last 48 hours. Now she does. The handwriting is neat, determined, no flourish, just the words. Karoline, you didn't just ask a stupid question. You asked the necessary one. And when I saw you put your hand over your heart, I realized something. I wasn't alone in my grief. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like I was screaming into an empty room. Thank you, not for saving anyone, not for exposing anyone. Thank you for listening. Amanda. Karoline folds the letter carefully, holds it in her lap for a moment. Her fingers brush the edge like it might vanish. She turns her head toward the window. The sun's coming up. Clouds scatter below in soft, endless folds. The pilot announces a short delay. She doesn't mind. She's not rushing toward anything. Because something shifted. Not in policy. Not in polling. In people. People who never send emails, who don't have Twitter, who forgot the sound of their own voice until someone like her asked a question and refused to apologize for it. The woman in 14D leans over slightly. I saw the hearing, the one where they tried to shut you up. Karoline meets her eyes. The woman shrugs. Didn't work, huh? Karoline shakes her head gently. Not this time. The woman smiles. Good. Keep not waiting. Karoline leans back into her seat, closes her eyes, and lets the engines roar around her. No podium, no stage, just movement, and a letter that still hums in her chest. What legacy is left by those who don't wait for permission to speak? So, Karoline, when Patel called you stupid, did you expect it would change anything? The host's tone is casual, almost playful, but the question hangs like smoke. Karoline doesn't smile. She doesn't blink. She lets the silence stretch for half a second too long, just long enough to remind the audience this isn't a victory lap. No, she answers simply. I didn't expect it to change anything. She adjusts the mic slightly, then adds, but I knew what would happen if I didn't respond. Somewhere, some girl, maybe watching with her dad, maybe watching alone, would think silence was strength. The host shifts, a little taken off guard. Karoline continues, not performative, just honest. And it's not. Silence isn't strength. Silence is strategy. And sometimes strategy is dressed up as restraint. The episode cuts to clips. B-roll. The hearing. The moment Patel snapped. The stillness that followed. Then Amanda's voice layered underneath. No one listened until she did. Fade back to studio. The host clears his throat. It's wild. That clip, I'd rather be called stupid for asking than remember for lying in silence, is now part of National Civics textbook. Did you know that? Karoline looks down. No, I didn't. Across the country, in middle schools and community colleges, the clip plays on projectors. Students write essays on questions that shook systems. A civic engagement group in Chicago launches a campaign. #AskAnyway. They distribute pins to classrooms and design posters that say, the mic isn't off. It's just in your hands now. At a high school in Minnesota, a teacher opens class with a prompt. Write about a time you asked a question no one wanted answered. One student writes, I asked why the books in our library were all written before my mom was born. They told me I was being difficult, but I guess Karoline was too. A year after the hearing, the Amanda Klein Memorial Scholarship is established. It supports women entering federal service after military loss. The donor is anonymous, but the memo on file reads, in honor of a voice that carried more than grief, it carried others. Behind the scenes, Karoline writes the first check herself. No press release. No quote. Meanwhile, Kash Patel slowly fades from the circuit. Not scandalized, just quieted. His consulting firm still runs, but invites thin. Panels pass. The invitation that once carried his name now says, pending confirmation. And the memo, the one Karoline unearthed, is now included in annual internal ethics training for security advisors. The footnote beneath it reads, case study, oversight by omission, lessons in delayed accountability. Karoline doesn't mention it in interviews. She just walks. Most mornings, early, through Capitol Hill, coffee in hand, alone, no cameras. On one of those mornings, she pauses in front of the Capitol dome, looks up. The sky is gray, soft with cloud. She whispers, just to herself, not legendary, just necessary. A man in a suit walks past and glances over, recognizing her. He doesn't say anything, but he nods. A quiet nod, not out of admiration, but recognition. Inside her office, there's no plaque that says Game Changer, but there's a drawer with folded letters. One from Alice in Nashua, one from Amanda Klein, one from a 7th grader in Idaho that says, I thought I was annoying for asking too many questions. Now I think maybe I'm training. At the end of the podcast interview, the host leans in. Final question, he says. What's the one moment that stays with you? Karoline pauses. Then, the moment they cut my mic, the host furrows his brow. But they lost after that. The people came to your defense. Karoline nods. I know. That's why it stays with me. She adjusts her blazer, stands up, and says just before walking off air, when a mic goes off, who speaks next matters more than who had it first. The screen fades, but the message doesn't. A principal prints the quote and tapes it to the auditorium wall. A mother in Kansas reads it aloud at her PTA meeting. A group of veterans includes it in a newsletter called The Watch Still Stands. And online, someone comments, she didn't break the system. She made it flinch. The final image isn't Karoline at a podium. It's not Patel in disgrace. It's a folded letter in a drawer. A girl holding a civics pen. A question echoing in the back of a classroom. Because in politics, reputation is loud. But legacy? Legacy is what they whisper long after the room goes quiet. If you believe the truth still matters in power, subscribe and drop your opinion in the comments.